Hello,
Matthew.
everybody.
Hey, how are you?
Good, Andy. Good to see you again. Hi, all.
See you.
Hello.
I think we have a quorum because it's 7 members and then we have 4. So.
Okay. Here's Bridget. So for sure.
All right. Well, then in that case, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Robin is not able to join us today, so I will be running the agenda. Angela Crawford with the builders. So we'll go ahead and get started by approving the minutes from our last meeting in February. Before we do that, were there any questions or comments on the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, then seeing none, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion we approve the minutes, Angela.
Or a second?
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. So we'll go on to the next item, which is the Vicinity Sustainability Plan. Is that you, Andy?
Well, I'll just briefly introduce Matthew O'Malley with Vicinity. We've had some various conversations here in Kansas City during the development of the climate plan regarding Vicinity, and we then had an opportunity to connect with Matthew and welcome Jeannie Morris as well from Vicinity. They were in town to kind of talk a little bit about their sustainability plans here in Kansas City, and we thought that was great alignment with what's going on with our climate planning process. So we finally had an opportunity to get them on the schedule for our Climate Protection Steering Committee. Matthew has already presented to the Environmental Management Commission. I think that was a month or so ago. So this is an opportunity for the steering committee to hear what's going on in regards to Vicinity. So Matthew, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andy, and it's great to be with all of you virtually. My name's Matt O'Malley. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Vicinity. I'm joined by my colleague, Jeannie Morris, who is our Senior VP for Government Affairs. And really appreciate this opportunity. As Andy said, I came out with some colleagues right before the holidays. We're super amped on really the vision and the commitment that the city and county of Kansas City have on decarbonization. We recognize the importance, and we at Vicinity can be a partner. So, you know, I have a very brief presentation. I think you folks are probably more well-versed in this world than most, so please interrupt with questions or thoughts or clarifications as we go through. And just curious how just so I can sort of measure my time, how long would you like my presentation to run?
We have a pretty open agenda, Matt. I'm up after you, so take as much time as you need.
Great. All right. Well, I'll keep it brief, but please feel free to interrupt me with any questions, and really looking for feedback as well. So, and Jeannie is kind enough to help run the slide. So if you want to, if you're able to share your screen, Jeannie, we'll get right started. Great, thank you. So I'll tell you a little bit about, again, my background. I am the first Chief Sustainability Officer for Vicinity. I've been with the company now about a year and 2 months. I started in January of 2022. Prior to that, I spent 11 years as a member of the Boston City Council. I was first elected, and I always tell the story that committee assignments were doled out by seniority. So as the person with the least amount of seniority, I was given the last pick for my committee, and it was the Environment Committee. But the joke was on my colleagues because it was the committee that I most wanted, and proudly chaired that for my entire time in office. What always drew me to that, as obviously an environmentalist, is how cities can really make such an appreciable difference on decarbonization efforts. And as we all know, when it comes to carbon emissions in cities, it's buildings which are the vast majority. Boston at 67%, Philly, it's even north of that, 73%. I'm not sure what the exact percentage of emissions that come from buildings in KC, but it's a majority, I'm certain. And if we want to get tackle about the climate crisis, we must start with our buildings. So I worked on a whole host of environmental legislation in my time in office, culminating with what's known as BERDO, and I know many of you are familiar with it. It's actually an acronym that has two meanings. The original BERDO was Building Energy Reporting and Disclosure Ordinance, which was a benchmarking ordinance that we passed in 2013. And then the final, we kept the acronym but changed the definition to the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance, and that was passed in September of 2021 in my final months on the council. And that set aggressive but achievable goals to building decarbonization, site-specific, every building above 20,000 square feet and above, 2050 deadline, but beginning in 2025, you'll see these miles per gallon that you have to hit. And any alternative compliance payments that the city were to generate, and that would go directly into an equitable investment funds. And I think this was a crucial part of the success of the ordinance, is that it really was really driven through the lens of environmental justice and making sure that we can generate revenue for not only renewable infrastructure in all aspects of Boston, but also job training, retrofits, education, etc. Through that work, I got to meet Bill DeCrose, who's the CEO of Vicinity, and after we passed BERDO, and he was a huge supporter of it, as many in the utilities and the real estate industry were, we got to lunch and he talked to me about how Vicinity was really poised to meet this moment, and subsequent conversations involved bringing me on as the CSO. And I was intrigued, and I will tell you what really sold me above all else was this notion of taking the Charles River in Boston, a river for whom the Standell song Dirty Water is named, and turn that into a renewable energy source. And that's precisely what we are doing. Our decarbonization effort begins in Boston, but we will be really expediting how we're going to tackle our other cities, and Kansas City is a crucial goal, and we are absolutely excited bringing this technology to KC. So having said that, Jeannie, you can see if you have questions about district energy, and it's fine too. This is a type of industry that's been around for millennia, quite frankly. You could see that the Romans had some crude version of district energy system to help heat dwellings thousands of years ago. In the modern era, starting in the last century, you saw many cities, such as KC, Boston, others, implement district energy system in downtown core, specifically in dense areas. And it used to be coal-fed. And certainly in KC, we know we have the coal yard right next door to our plant. It was a coal-fed facility. We had a big boiler. We would create heat and steam, and then through underground pipes, disperse that energy. Coal was our fuel source a century and a half ago, followed by oil in the mid-20th century. Gas came about in the late 90s by and large, and then CHP, which is combined heat and power cogeneration, came about in the mid-2000s. In 2021, we started looking at biogenic fuel. Excuse me for 1 second. We have my assistant who wants to say a quick hello, freshly back from school. Hi, honey. And we're beginning now our electrification process that's really underway in Boston, in our Boston-Cambridge district, but it's going to be coming to Kansas City in the not too distant future. After that, hi, honey, we'll be looking at RNG, hydrogen, other technologies as they become available. Next slide, please. So in KC, right now, currently, we save over 33,000 tons of carbon emissions annually for Kansas City. We've been around for over 110 years. We serve 4 million square feet, 60+ customers of commercial space, including T-Mobile, City Hall, the Convention Center, Flash Cube Apartments, the Lifted Spirits Distillery. We run 6 miles of underground piping and 4 miles for chilled water. We have a 5 megawatt cogeneration capacity and a reliability rate of 99.99%. As a company, we are currently under review for SBTs, Science-Based Target Initiatives, to fulfill a net zero carbon commitment by 2050, but we believe that will be significantly sooner in KC, as well as some of our other larger markets. Next slide, please. You can see a little bit of a map, both on the left and the right, and what constitutes our district. Again, we're downtown. We're not the district energy isn't the answer for every part of the city, but certainly the downtown core, we can be a crucial part and a crucial tool to help building decarbonization. Next, please. So if you want to look at what our electrification policy is, it's really a three-pronged approach. The first is installing electric boilers. So it's moving away from the old gas-fed boilers. That is currently underway in Boston. We have retired some of our old gas infrastructure. We are currently building our first 50 megawatt e-boiler. It will be up and operational within the year. I can now say less than a year. It'll be by the first quarter of 2024. It'll be up and operational. The reason why this is an interesting or a unique opportunity for us, both in not all of our districts, but certainly in Boston, certainly in KC, is where we have cogeneration facilities or cogen. We have connections to the grid where we export our electricity. This would allow us to run the e-boiler by importing electricity at the, it's essentially a wholesale rate, but it's an interconnect rate, which is significantly more price competitive. That would allow us to enter into PPAs and procure renewable energy sources at a reasonable cost. Will e-steam, our electrified product, cost more than traditional cogen steam? It will, and it should. It's a decarbonized product, but the price differential won't be that large. And actually, as more and more renewables come online, you will see it as a more cost competitive product. The second aspect we're looking at are these industrial heat pump complexes. Again, many, but not all, but many of our facilities serve on rivers, certainly in KC. We're on the Missouri. In Boston, we're on the Charles. In Philadelphia, we're on the Schuylkill. This would allow us to help use a heat pump complex using a water source to create steam. And what's interesting about this is what is happening all over Europe right now. Every major European city that's known for their sustainability, cities like Copenhagen or Glasgow or Malmo or Drammen, all use this heat pump technology, which we're all familiar with, but using the industrial level, anywhere from 10 to 50 megawatts to lift energy from rivers and oceans. That can be an absolutely crucial way to create energy, and it's something that's happening in the technology is advancing in such a way. And also the COP, which is the efficiency of these heat pumps, which is anywhere of 2.2, 2.4, 2.6, meaning for every unit of energy that we put in to run it, we're capturing 2.5 units of energy as a result. This is the other aspect that we'd be looking at for KC. The third is the thermal storage, which, given where we are often sited in industrial areas, we're allowed to we have the capability to look at some thermal storage capability. And the reason why this is really attractive is because it will allow us to shave and move the peak, shift the peak energy for our renewable energy sources. Sun is middle of the day, the peak, which is also a huge demand. For wind, it's late evening / early morning, not a huge peak, but that's something that's going to be allow us to shift that peak 6 hours later or so, which is when our peak is at 6 a.m. in the morning when we have to heat buildings before humans arrive. So electric boiler is currently underway being built. The heat pump is probably a year behind that. Thermal storage, we put a little bit longer of a lead time, just given the fact that the technology is evolving in such a way. But the last point I want to add about this is that as opposed to lithium batteries, this is only storing heat. So it's a lot safer. The capacity for storage is anywhere from 10 to 100x, and it will allow us to both deliver that 99.99% reliability. What are two of the concerns that people often have when we talk about electrification or decarbonization? It's the cost, how expensive it will be, and the reliability. And this is how we're able to tackle those two issues head on. And it also allows us that we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. We're taking a multifaceted approach to how we decarbonize. Next slide, please, Jeannie. So again, what is interesting about this, what makes this, and I'm not trying to tell you folks by any stretch, I'm really just sort of explaining why this is an important and unique opportunity for district energy, is that we've got so much of the existing infrastructure already. We've got connections to the electrical grid, which affords us wholesale market renewable. We can convert renewable power to steam through highly efficient technologies at scale. We can leverage the assets that we have. We can purchase renewable power either on our own or working with our customers to do it. And this will allow our customers to either comply with ordinances or local laws such as BERDO in Boston, or their own ESG goals, which many have. We serve a huge number of health centers, lab space, colleges, universities. They often have some internal ESG goals being driven by their students or consumers, and we can help make that meet those goals and really even surpass some pretty audacious goals. Next slide, please. Again, this is what's happening in Boston right now. I know you don't want to hear about Boston, you want to hear about KC, but you can see that we're not making this up on the fly. This is something that has been proven and is happening right now, and we're going to be bringing this to all of our districts in the not too distant future. Next slide, please. And then questions. So. I see Bill. Yes, Bill, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Matthew. I have several questions. And first, compliments to Vicinity. I was around when Vicinity moved from coal to natural gas, which was an improvement.
Yeah.
And then seeing this, since the district downtown would be quite challenging to individually move to electricity, I think this is a big deal. So with my questions, will there need to be a transmission upgrade from Evergy on the Vicinity site?
I don't believe initially, but certainly in the long term, there likely would be. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. You know, we've been working hand in glove with many of the electrical providers, recognizing the fact that upgrades need to be made, more substations need to be sited across the board, no matter where you are. So I would imagine there would be some. I think initially we'd be able to, much like Boston, we will be delivering the first e-steam a year from now. So I think they're a smaller load as the percentage of our steam grows from X percentage to 100% or to 99% e-steam, then I'm sure that will happen. But initially, I think that we should be in pretty good stead. But I want to get you the right answer on that. So let me get a little more background information.
All right, thank you. The next point, and I'm going to stay on Evergy for a moment and move away there. Has there been a discussion, or will there be, between Vicinity and Evergy to, on Evergy's end, add more renewables to the grid to make this electricity even cleaner that Vicinity would use, since the city is wanting to move to 100% clean energy?
Yes. So right now, and I mentioned this sort of briefly in one of our slides, we can enter into power purchase agreements on behalf of customers. We can walk them through the process. We've done it both in some of our other districts. That's on the existing grid. But yes, I think all grids across the board are doing what they can to increase those numbers. And any way we can help that process and expedite that process, we are excited to do so.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is the city and Vicinity could discuss moving forward to asking Evergy to do something as far as a PPA.
I think we'd be yes. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but we'd certainly be. We have a lot of expertise in that area, and as our largest customer, I think the city and county are our largest customers. We'd certainly be happy to explore potential opportunities.
Yeah, Matt,
Okay.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think some of this is also going to be customer driven, because our customers at the end of the day will be the ones who are actually purchasing the renewable power. It's going to be a pass through for us. We're not going to make any money on the electricity. So I know we'd be happy to be part of that conversation, but I think it's going to have to be more of a group conversation.
All right, that's helpful. How much gas is Vicinity using, I don't know, per year, per month right now that will basically go away for the 16 block district in Kansas City?
I will get you that.
You'll give me that.
I'll
That's
get you
fine.
that information, yeah.
Got you. I'm curious about that. How much would be being replaced on that? So if you could get that, I think the committee would be interested in that, since that's something
Yep.
we're looking at. You mentioned a coefficient of performance on the heat pump, the industrial heat pump
Yep.
units that would be sited at the vicinity site, I guess in vicinity of vicinity. What gives the variability of the coefficient of performance between 2.2 and 2.6? Is that scaling it or size, or what is that?
I think it's the sheer size, so it's not going to be the same
Okay.
COP of what my home heat pumps
Gotcha.
are, which are a lot higher than that. And it's also the time of year that produces that variable. But suffice it to say, a year ago, industrial heat pumps were lucky to be in the low ones. Now they've more than doubled that. So as we anticipate,
Right, they are going up. That's not quite my bailiwick, so I just know enough to be dangerous on the industrial commercial side. But thank you on that. Two other questions real quickly. How many cities is Vicinity going to be doing this with in the United States, roughly? if you don't-
all networks, which is about 13 cities.
Okay.
But to be fair, they run the gamut from Philadelphia, which is 90+ million square feet, to the Watergate
Washington,
complex in Washington, D.C., which is a lot smaller. So we are decarbonizing across the board, prioritizing some of our larger ones, further prioritizing by legislation as well as customer demand.
And as far as prioritization, where is Kansas City on the calendar?
The last thing I want to do is say by 2025 things will be underway, because I can't promise that. But I will tell you this, that I think it's a safe bet to say some early steps will be getting by then. It may take a little bit longer to get it all done, but Kansas City has moved up considerably in the rankings over the last couple of months, just based on some interest in some early conversations, including with some people on this call right now.
Yep. And again, without committing to any timeline, we're well aware of the city's internal decarbonization goals, and they're one of our largest customers, if not our largest customer in KC. So we certainly want to help them meet their goals.
All right, that generates two more questions. Does the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl over Philly, did that put us over Philly?
No comment.
comment.
Although, hell, it was a great game. I'm a Patriots fan, so I was steadfastly neutral. It was a great game, I will say that. Jeannie's from Philly,
sit
so
in
she
Philly.
might not
It
be
was
as
a little
generous
more
as I.
heartbreaking over here.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So,
But I grew up in Texas, so I'm a big Pat Mahomes fan.
oh, there you go. Last question I have, and then I will shut up, is that you mentioned you have other customers in Kansas City. I don't really want to know who they are, but briefly, how large of customers do you have?
If you can go back to that slide, Jeannie,
Yep.
The square footage across the board. I believe our largest is either the city or the county of KC.
Well,
That's
sure,
correct.
what the city would have. And then we had that down to, I guess, let me rephrase that, and I apologize if I'm inelegant here. Do you have anything besides that 16 block area of downtown KC that would be included in this, or is that kind of the whole enchilada?
That's the whole enchilada of our current network. Having said that, we're putting in laterals in other cities, and where there's interest and demand, that's certainly a conversation we could have.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, that is all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did also see we had a comment from Laura, and then I saw she had her hand up at 1.2. So the comment was to put the slide back up that shows what's happening in Boston. And then Laura, did you have anything else you wanted to chime in about?
It was just that last slide went really fast, and I wanted to make sure that everybody could see kind of what the what could happen here.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to back up. Well, I figured we could put it up while the questions were being answered.
And will we
Sorry
be
about that. I missed the comments.
Oh, that's okay. And also, I just wanted to say, Bill, you're not allowed to talk. Don't get us moved down on the list because of your football picks.
And will we be able to share these slides out with the committee as well?
Yes, I will send you either Jeannie or myself will send you a copy. I'd only ask that you not put them online, but you feel free to share internally or even with folks who ask.
Were there any other questions? All right, give that just a second, see if anyone raises their hand while we wrap up. Did you all have anything else you wanted to conclude with before we move on to our next agenda item?
Yeah, I would just say again, we are so committed to this as a company. It's the right thing to do for the planet. It's also the right thing to do for a utility to stay relevant and to truly meet this moment. I don't want to overpromise and say that the heat pump will be up and operational in a year in KC, as I said, but this is a priority for us. We love what's going on down there. We love the energy. We love the potential. Some early conversations we've had have been incredibly beyond fruitful, and beyond an interest in E-Steam, but really figuring out how we can make it work. So the good news is there's a lot of people smarter than me figuring out how we can do this, but just please rest assured how excited we are to be a tool in KC's decarbonization story. It's our singular focus as a company to see how we can do this in the years ahead. And we want to do this across the board. So we're just really excited for this opportunity. I'm happy to come back anytime, even check up. And when I'm back down in, I think I made an offer to the other committee, happy to have you over for a site. Jeannie and I'll plan on being back down at some point in the spring, which I guess starts today. And love to have folks who are interested to see it. It's a really cool old site. And yeah,
we
it's just a
we
lot of
have a
history
pretty
there.
big conference room. If you guys ever want to do an in-person meeting in our conference room followed by a tour. Bo, do you have a question?
I think Laura was actually had her hand.
Sorry, Laura.
So we'll go to her and then we'll go to Bo.
That's okay. Bo's a commission member, so go to Bo first.
Okay.
I can follow up.
And Bo, we are not able to hear you, but I can see you're not on mute, so.
While he's figuring that out, I can ask my question real
Okay.
quick because it really is just, so I know we have a few customers that are outside the city that are larger, but if we wanted to say, you know, I owned a fourplex right off of downtown, could I get on the Vicinity Steam Loop? I mean, will you run it for smaller entities or does it have to be a big entity?
It sounds like I'm being evasive. I'm not. It depends. A lot of times when we think about the CapEx expenditure, like any business, some we eat, some we'd factor into the cost of the new utility. So it would have to make sense in two ways for financial, but we are obviously always looking to expand. And again, I think that we offer a unique service. So the size of the building wouldn't be the prohibitive factor. You know, district energy doesn't make sense for everything. A single family home typically wouldn't use it, or something that's not a larger consumer of energy. But having said that, something that has a number of units, we'd obviously always be interested in seeing if there could be a potential lateral that could serve them and would make sense, you know, for all parties.
Yep. Thanks.
Bo, do we get your sound? Doesn't sound like it. Do you want to type your question into the chat and I'll read that out once it's good? Okay, well, if you do, let us know. All right, were there any other questions before we wrap up this item on the agenda? Okay, well, thank you both so much for taking the time to share with us today. Very exciting things happening. And I assume, Andy, you'll be able to connect with the committee about the slides after the fact as well. Okay, great.
Yeah, we'll distribute those, and then as we work with Vicinity on hopefully a site visit down the road, we'll reach out to the group.
That would be great.
Just out of curiosity, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Wow, that
Yay.
was weird. Hey, Matt, I have a real question for you real quick. Since you're working so much with electrical, are you working up there with IBW 103 up there, any of this stuff?
Wow, you know that I am impressed, Bo. Yes, absolutely. And my
Yeah.
cousin's a proud member of 103. So if
Yeah,
we
Lou
weren't using
Antonellis is
him,
really
I'd
involved
be
with
hearing
that.
it at the holidays. So yes,
Good deal. All right. So can I reach out to Lou concerning
Lou
this as well
Antonellis.
too?
I used to have a podcast and Lou was on it.
Is that
Lou's
right?
doing great.
Good
Yeah,
friend
I
of
know
mine.
Lou well, Mike
Yeah.
Monahan, all those guys. So yeah, are you a union electrician? I assume.
I'm the business manager of
Awesome.
local 124 here.
Great. Well, I'll close with this. 103 is one of the most sought after endorsements in Boston, not only because it's a great union with great members, but there's a giant billboard, electric billboard they have on 93, which is one of our major highways. So I'm glad you mentioned them, and I'll say hello when I see them. And please pass on my regards when you talk to Lou next.
I sure will. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, we will move on to the OEQ update then.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to kind of fly through a few items here that we've got just as updates for the committee. We'll start off first with the budget. We are getting down to it. So this week, the council will be receiving or putting in their budget amendments. And I think we may have talked in the past committee meeting about where OEQ's ask was in terms of the budget. I know there have been various conversations regarding what our ask was, and it was not put in the proposed budget. So we'll see what the amendments have. But what you should be looking for is we hopefully will see what those amendments are that are being proposed by council sometime tomorrow. And then the Finance Committee will take those up on Wednesday morning's meeting. They are moving up the Finance Committee meeting to, I believe, 9 a.m. on Wednesday. There will not be a TIO committee meeting, so I think that's that moving the finance up to that slot. So 9 a.m. You take a peek. It's your last opportunity. Usually they accept testimony at those committee meetings on Wednesday. So after that, the budget goes to the ordinance goes to full council on Thursday. And they are required by charter to approve that budget. So Thursday is the magic day. So stay tuned. We'll see how it plays out. Keep our fingers crossed for some support in terms of positions for the office here to implement the Climate Protection Resiliency Plan. Any questions before I move on to the next item? All right. Just a few things going on in the office, just to kind of give you a kind of a sample of the things that we've got going on here. Working on transparency, of course, was a concern, question, issue that came up during our planning process. So staff has been kind of processing through the various products that are out there already, kind of prepackaged in a way to kind of allow us to track the various strategies and actions in the climate plan, not just for what we do here in city operations, but also what the community is doing as well. So we're kind of, inviting various vendors to give us presentations. We've seen a lot of good things being offered. So we will kind of see how that plays out here in the next couple of months as we kind of hone in on a particular product. We'll see through our procurement process what opportunity we have in terms of inviting the steering committee to be involved with that selection process. But just letting you know that we are taking the transparency aspect of this planning process or the implementation side of this plan seriously, and that's sort of an important one, is the transparency side. Other things we've done, one of the things in the Climate Protection Resiliency Plan was for the city to join the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition, and just want to let folks know that we did go forward with signing up for that. Also, another thing which actually came about a year ago under Councilman Robinson's, one of her resolutions was having the city sign on with the Biophilic Cities Network. So we've done that as well. So I've got staff that'll be kind of monitoring our requirements under that particular network and commitment. Kind of skipping along to renewable energy. I know it's come up about the solar array at the airport, and just wanted to let everyone know we have proposals in hand. The selection committee is just beginning the process to dive into those, and we are not in a set specific schedule to kind of come to conclusions on what that is. We're working with NREL, who's helping us kind of decipher the technical aspects of the proposals. We are expecting to do interviews with the prospective developers of these solar arrays. So, realistically, I would just say stay tuned. At some point, City Communications is probably going to put together something to share with the community about that project, but as of right now, I can't really say much more about it, other than we've got them, we're looking at them, and expect realistically at least a couple of months before we make any conclusions and offers with a particular developer. So we'll just let you know as that is able to be shared. Okay. We have recently, bringing this up, I know several of you are familiar with our energy manager working with our ESCO companies that we have on contract. One of the things that we've been talking about on and off for a couple of years now is Energy Star certifications for city buildings. Resolution 18-1000, which goes back a couple of years, several years, had a requirement on it to kind of go for Energy Star certification for those city buildings that were over a certain square footage and that also were eligible for Energy Star scores. So for us, it amounted to somewhere around 15 to 16 city buildings that would be eligible for that. So what we've been doing is we found one of the ESCOs gave us a proposal to start looking at those facilities, to start collecting the data and kind of see what our Energy Star score would be so that we can actually move forward with certification on those facilities. We've got, I think, 5 or 6 right now that I think would score well enough to certify, but then we've got others that we're not certain will make that certification level, but it'll at least give us some idea of what kind of work we need to do to get them to get a score eligible enough to certify. So just want to let folks know, we used to get the question from time to time about how are we doing with compliance on 18-1000. We haven't forgot about that specific resolution and that particular requirement. So we're revisiting that. We had a few dollars in our budget this year to put towards that effort. So hopefully that work will start here shortly in that regard. Skipping on to composting, I know we mentioned a few times some of the work that Kelly's been working on. We've been trying to put together a composting pilot project here for City Hall. And I know Kelly has been spending vast amounts of times with our facilities folks and the vendors, and has been learning a lot of interesting things about City Hall and city staff and everything. So we're excited to hopefully get this pilot project off the ground before too long. I know that there's been some rumors about the city also doing a composting program for the community. That's down the road a bit, but we're hoping that at least internally we can get this composting program up and running so that we can kind of feel out some of the issues and hopefully, being a pilot project, we can roll out to some of the other city facilities that it makes sense to do so. Let's see. All right. If I know several of you know, the NFL draft is going to be in town here soon. So I just wanted to share with folks that within the NFL, there is a group known as NFL Green that has approached us in terms of working with the city on some projects prior to the draft or during the week of the draft. So we've had some initial conversations with them, looking at what project or projects we might undertake with them. We're still working through some details of what that might be and or what volunteer opportunities there might be where the community can participate. But it's been an interesting conversation, and just want to make folks aware that the NFL, this NFL green seems like they do this at any major events across the country. Wherever the Super Bowl might be or these draft events, this is kind of a company's part of that process. So we'll kind of share that information as we're able to do so. Let's see what else. KCI opened up, of course. We got a new terminal up and running. And if you didn't catch it, it wasn't well advertised or talked about, but the airport did certify as a LEED Gold facility. So one of the few airports in the country that have such certified LEED Gold. So pretty exciting stuff. We'll be sharing more information about that. I know we've received a lot of questions about what aspects of the airport, what points did we earn to qualify as LEED Gold. So we're kind of, a lot of good information has been shared, whether through the STAR or through Green Ability. So if you haven't had a chance to see those articles, we can certainly share those, but we'll continue to promote that. That's kind of a big deal for us. For those of you that don't know, the city does have an ordinance in place for our own city buildings and city projects where we are required to go for LEED Gold on our buildings. So this one was kind of a big deal, being as complex of a project as that was. So good news on that end. Let's see here. I would just say we're working through a lot of grant opportunities, as you can expect. Not really wanting to get into any details on any specific. There's just so much we're trying to kind of vet and work with our internal grant experts that are helping us decipher what's coming down the pipe. We're talking to a lot of our external partners, seeing where we can partner on some things. So as we get more concrete things lined up and approved, we'll share those opportunities. But just wanting to share with the committee that, we understand that there's a lot of dollars on the table this year, and we are certainly looking for ways to get those dollars. So last thing I have on the list is just, I know I've spoken with many of you recently about the commission. The mayor has taken it upon himself to revisit all of the various commissions across the board. A lot of concerns about vacancies on the commissions. So he's assigned the deputy chief of staff to kind of take a close look at all of the commissions, not just the Climate Protection Steering Committee, but several others as well. I think the intent is to try to look at, where they can fill vacancies, where it makes sense to consolidate. And so as I've spoken with many of you already, the ask from the mayor's office in regards to the Climate Protection Steering Committee is consideration of, if the mayor were to consolidate the Climate Protection Steering Committee with the Environmental Management Commission, would you as a steering committee member be willing to be appointed to the EMC? So still have a few outstanding responses I'm looking for from some of you, and I think those of you that know who you are, so you can call me later or send me an email. I would appreciate it, but I do need to get a response back to the mayor's office here shortly. So if you could follow up with that, I would appreciate it. I think I've covered a wide variety of things. I think I got everything on my list. So if there's any questions, concerns, feel free to fire away.
Does anyone from the committee have any questions or concerns? If you come up with any, feel free to chime in, but otherwise we will go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comments. So if there's anybody who has any public comments, if you can go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll just call on people in the order that hands are raised. We'll give it a few seconds here to make sure people have time to figure out how to do the hand raising function. Andy, did you have something?
Yeah, and I forgot kind of a big deal. And actually, I meant to, when I was writing my notes down from the meeting, hoping that Kristen would be able to join us. Obviously, we have a tree preservation ordinance that passed last week. So Kristen does an excellent job of sharing the finer details of that. So I certainly invite her to share the outcome and the result of that if the committee were so interested. But did want to give kudos to the work that Kristen and several of the other partners, stakeholders, and city staff that did a lot of the work on that. So thank you for that.
And I don't know exactly what it means to be on hold, but I see she went on hold right as you were mentioning that. So I don't know if she heard any of that, but if she comes back, maybe we'll let her jump in to speak to that a little bit more. But yes, great point. Thank you for mentioning that. Any other public comments? All right, well, I'm not seeing any hands being raised. I'm not seeing Kristen come back. Oh, Kelly, oh, okay. Maybe Kelly can speak to, I know she's been involved. Kelly, did you want to jump in?
This is Kelly Gilbert with the Metropolitan Energy Center, and not the tree folks, but I have a question about the state of Missouri codes. I don't think I heard you mention it in your update, Andy, and so I'm kind of curious to know if this group has decided whether to comment on or send comments to the state of Missouri's legislature, the Senate, or the House, either one. And I'd love to hear from the city whether the city is continuing to be involved in requesting them not to move forward with that legislation.
So from the city's perspective, yes, at this point, I think as I've shared with some folks, we are just working with the senators here locally and having them reach out to the larger coalition of senators across the state on this issue. We kind of expect that there really isn't much we can do to stop the House. If they're going to pass it, which we think they will, it's going to happen. So we've kind of decided just to focus our efforts with the senators. So our city planning folks, we're supposed to be setting up those meetings so that they may have already done that. I haven't with spring break. I'm not sure how far they got with getting those meetings set up, but for sure, that's where our efforts are at this point, is just trying to build a coalition with the senators here in the state to try to stop it there.
Thank you.
I would also say that in terms of the energy code, we are still internally moving forward with implementation. So until the state comes back and overrides the work that we're doing, our city planning folks do need to be prepared for an implementation date in July to be ready to go. So, we've been meeting with them, myself and Laura, with the codes folks to kind of work through the details so that they have a successful implementation. And of course, we appreciate the work that Kelly and your staff have been doing at Metropolitan Energy Center to train staff and others on the new codes. So we'll just keep going with expected rollout in July until we get told otherwise.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for the question, Kelly. Is there any final comments before we wrap up our agenda today? Bridget?
Okay, Microsoft Teams has changed recently, right? They've moved everything around. I was just curious, mostly towards Andy and Laura. I know that the Department of Transportation they're charging and fueling discretionary grant programs. They have like an informational webinar for cities and states and tribal, all of the entities that can apply. Should I send those to you guys if you guys want to sit in on? Okay, perfect. That was my question. Oh, did I just do it again? I don't know how to work this.
I think you got it. All right, well, I still haven't seen Kristen come back, but I know there's lots of information floating around out there about the ordinance that passed. So I'm sure she'd be happy to field questions as well if anyone has any. So there are no other public comments. I know we don't have any new business. So at this point, we will move to the final item on the agenda, which is to adjourn. So if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So move.
In a second.
Second.
Great. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Take care, guys.
You-
Thank you.